When it comes to Will, do you ever feel like you're the scapegoat for some of
All the time. All the time. They rallied around me and was like, this is wrong. You should not have done this to yourself.
Meaning had that red table talk? Is that what you're referring to?
Creating that narrative or allowing that narrative that I had some way betrayed Will.
Did Will want to be there? Because the
Yes.
perception, just looking at him, kind of somewhat
Will
unshaven.
chose.
Okay.
Will chose to be there because he wasn't supposed to be.
Got it. No, that makes
And I
sense.
think that once he got there, he was like,
Thank you so much for spending a few moments with me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's been a busy couple of weeks. I haven't really been paying attention to the news, so I don't know if
Right.
anything new is happening with you or not.
Well, I mean, just, this book is coming out. That's about it. So,
No, so I read it. It was a riveting book, and I'm not one to say that because I will put a book down if I'm not feeling it.
Right.
But tell me what led you to writing this book.
I had a friend of mine that was like, you need to write a book. And we had been going back and forth. And, I had to really think about, like, why was my friend telling me that I needed to write a book. And one day I got it. I was like, oh, man, my journey from, feeling unlovable to lovable, my lack of self-worth to feeling worthy. And I was like, okay, that's a worthy story to tell.
Your name has been in rap songs, lyrics. When I was, younger, it's like, oh, and even now it's like, oh, Jada Pinkett. So it's kind of hard to believe someone like you with beauty and fame and success and talent could ever feel unloved or unworthy.
I know, right? And that's the false belief, right? That all of these external things can make you feel a certain way about yourself, And when I was feeling these feelings, I was really going through a mental health crisis as well. And we didn't talk a lot about that, specifically in the African American community. And so I feel like that particular aspect of my journey really put more emphasis on me feeling a lack of self-worth.
One of the themes that I got from reading this book, obviously it's called Unworthy, was just like the need to, I guess, feel safe. That was like a reoccurring theme, like literally all throughout the book. So can you just talk about that need to feel safe?
Yeah, I think just, growing up with a parent who, my mother had substance abuse problems, and I never felt that sense of stability, that sense of security. Not that I never felt it, but through many moments of my childhood. And so that was the thing that is my love language, feeling safe, right? And so I like to help others feel safe, right? And so that's just part of my love language, part of what makes me feel worthy. And I just had to learn how to find that safety within myself, right? Because if we don't have that safety within ourselves, as adults, right, then there's nobody that can make us feel safe as adults, right? And so I had to learn how to mature out of that child state of mind, right? That inner child state of mind that is still looking for that parental idea of safety. And once you become an adult, that's on us. Yeah, so that was part of the journey for me.
I think another theme in the book, maybe not as explicit, was that I took from it, I should say, was the need to, not need, but really paying attention or caring about how you're perceived. And the reason I say that is because I think about your grandmother, right? And,
Right.
you know, she had a certain, I think you say in the book, she had a need to be perceived a certain way.
Right.
And I wonder, like, even with you and your marriage and your family, if there was kind of like a need to feel perceived a certain way, which is why maybe we're just now learning a lot of the things about you guys that we didn't know before.
It wouldn't have made any sense to talk about what we were going through. And nobody's entitled to that information. You know what I mean? And I decided to talk about it when Will and I were solid, right? Because everybody, like if I got a private detective and went into everybody's life, there's a whole lot of stuff people aren't talking about. Let's just keep it real.
That's real.
You know what I mean? And marriage is complicated, right? And so even with all of the misunderstanding that's already happening, right? Imagine, and that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to reveal as I was going through the process of separated, trying to figure out, do we get divorced? Because trying to manage all that and having all the chatter would have put Will and I in a very different place, right? So now being able to stand together in a solid situation between us, right? And now be able to talk about it in a way that is looking back and going, hey, this is what I went through versus this is what I'm going through now. I'm on the other side, right? So us trying to talk about it, or me rather trying to talk about it while I'm in the midst of it, that would have been a mess. That just would have been a mess, you know, which is why I kept it so close to the chest for 7 years until I got myself together. And so much has changed between Will and I since then.
It seems like your whole marriage, there have been rumors flying around, as you know. Like,
Right.
Were you aware of those rumors? And if so, because, I mean, there are a lot of them.
There's tons of
Right.
them. I can't keep up.
Me neither. I was trying to research too. But were you aware? And then also, why not try to squash maybe the more salacious or the more persistent ones, like at the time, instead of waiting till kind of now?
Because a lot of it is like, why even get involved in all of that? Like, you're going to have chatter. You know, if I tried to like clear up every little rumor that was out there, is like, and at the end of the day, people are going to say what they're going to say. The one thing that's important is that Will and I know what the truth is. What everybody else thinks, that's on them. I don't have, you know that old saying, what people think about you ain't your business? Right. There you go.
Did your grandma tell you that one too?
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of, I guess, one of the things I guess I should say I appreciate about the book is that while you give glimpses into, you know, your husband and your kids, it's your story.
Right.
Right? You didn't really tell anybody else's story. But I am wondering, since, you know, there are people mentioned in the book, like, how did you prepare Will for what you were going to say, or even your kids, although they're not as, you know, you're not really talking that much about their lives.
Right.
But how did you say, you know, if it's a matter of like your truth versus hurting Will by some of the stories? Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And that's a really good question, because we had been through so much therapy that we were very clear that, and this is a universal theme in marriage, different perceptions. Right? Exactly. Different perceptions. And through our therapy, really coming to terms with that idea. Because as a married couple, you think, you know, you're supposed to think like I think. You know, that's what is love. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to think how I think. And so you get into these power struggles of like, no, how I think about things is how we're going to roll, and it's what's best. And so couples get into this flow, right? Mm-hmm. And so with Will and I, we're learning how to respect different points of views and learning how to integrate those different points of views. So I say all that to say, Will completely understood that this was my point of view, mm-hmm. and that I had a right to talk about my point of view in our dynamic, and thought that would be very helpful. Mm. And we're even talking about writing a book called Don't Try This at Home. You know what I mean? Where as a married couple, through everything that we've been through, just talking step by step of where were our pitfalls and how we got through everything we've gotten through. You know, because I think marriage is so difficult, specifically in this day and age, because it can be really complicated when it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. But you got to go through some stuff to figure that out, you know?
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. Yeah.
I want to make sure I ask this question the right way. Like, you guys are so famous that I think sometimes race gets eliminated. You know, like, a lot of people don't see Will as a black man. A lot of people don't see you as a black woman. But when I was reading, well, what I mean by that is that because, you know, fame can eliminate until certain situations come up. They say, oh no, you definitely. But in terms of like reading this book, I'm like, no, it is a story for everybody, but this is a black woman's story. A black woman in America, born in a certain type of environment, who's then made it to the heights of heights. You know, this is a black woman's story. Yeah,
for sure, no doubt about it. And I understand what you mean by that, because I do think, I mean, even black people are like, what? What happened? You know, she did what? Because people get so caught up in like Jada Pinkett Smith, but there was Jada Pinkett. You know, there was Jada Corinne Pinkett before there was Jada Pinkett Smith.
And some people feel like you guys don't understand what the average black, Baltimore and Philly was so long ago.
So long ago. And listen, that's true to a certain extent, right? As far as there's a lot of things that are changing, the nuances, not the core. The core is not changing. Right? We understand the core, maybe sometimes the nuances. I mean, I almost got caught up in some mess in Baltimore going to my old stomping grounds in a black SUV with tinted windows. Can't do that.
Yeah.
And I really almost got caught up in a whole violent situation, right? Because that nuance, you can drive around in LA like that, you know what I'm saying? But you can't be up there, you know what I'm saying, where I was at in B-More, just wanting to check out some spots. You know what I'm saying? So nuances for sure, but never the core.
I'm just curious, you know, how long did it take you like to write it?
Man, so I started writing before the Oscars.
What Oscars?
Yeah, exactly. So that was 2022. So I guess about a year and a half.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then obviously the Oscars is included in the book. So when did you fit? There's the eye roll. Don't you? I don't want
it. There goes that eye roll.
See, I love your energy. I'm telling you. But so I assumed, was that kind of when you finished the book, like after the Oscars?
Way after because I had just started.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got the timeline now. Okay, got it.
I just started, right? And so, yeah, that was a trip, because I was actually thinking, I'm not going to write this book, you know, but I kept going.
That was my question. Did you ever feel like, and not just because of the Oscars, but, you know, with that included, like, man, some of these stories, like, I can't do that. Because, you know, I hear celebrities all the time. You'll hear 2 years before, they're releasing a book. And then by the time that date rolls around, it's like, they're not going to do it. Did you ever?
No. The only time I reconsidered possibly was after the Oscars. I had to really, because I was like, I'm going to I can't write a book and not talk about this piece. And I was like, you know, so it took me a while to figure that out.
Do you ever feel like you are, when it comes to Will, do you ever feel like you're the scapegoat for some of?
All the time. But you know what? That's a universal, but you know, as far as women are concerned, in this patriarchal construct, the woman is always the scapegoat. You know, it's so interesting that a man so powerful, right, so capable, but yet in that power, a woman can be so irrelevant. But as soon is that man does something that is unsavory. Now, a woman has all the power in the world to make that thing happen, as if a man loses all his autonomy. And I just find it so fascinating, you know, and it really is, I believe, some of the false core beliefs that sit in how patriarchy was set up, you know. That's just me.
Did there ever come a time, because, you know, Will Smith is one of, Will Smith, why am I saying his last name?
Yeah.
But Will, like, you don't know who he is. Was there, because he's one of the most memed person, I feel like, on the internet, good and bad.
Right.
And even when we think about the Red Table Talk episode, like that meme is used for everything, funny things, and but it wasn't a funny conversation with you guys.
Right.
Do you ever feel, have you ever gone to him and said, like, Will, like, I'm taking too much heat, or this is too much for something maybe I didn't.
Right.
We can say the Oscars. I had nothing to do with that, yet I'm taking all the heat.
You know what? That was something I had to learn, right? That Red Table Talk conversation was the first time I really got to see my codependency and how I will take protection someone else too far in regards to, you know, in codependency, how my codependency works. If I'm loving you, I'm going to put myself on the side of the road. And if I'm loving myself, I have to put you at the side of the road, right? And what that table taught me was like, oh no, you got to learn how everybody can walk on the road, right? That my love language of protection doesn't mean that I have to throw myself under the bus. And if I hadn't done that table and seen the reaction, it was really the reaction of the people around me who love me that were so hurt that I did that and were so affected that it made me realize, oh man, maybe I need to relook at how I operate. You know, because I can like, public opinion doesn't bother me like that. I don't care about what people are saying outside in the world, because people are always going to say crazy stuff outside in the world. You have no control over that.
Right.
But what I do care about is what's happening in my inner world. So what my kids think, what my mother, my friends, right? And how they rallied around me and was like, this is wrong. You should not have done this to yourself.
Meaning had that Red Table Talk. Is that what you're referring to?
Meaning that creating that narrative or allowing that narrative that I had some way betrayed Will, or that Will didn't know, because we were apart.
Right.
Since 2016.
Did Will want to be there? Because the
Yes.
perception, just looking at him, kind of somewhat unshaven.
Will chose.
Okay.
Will chose to be there because he wasn't supposed to be. I was going to go to the table by myself, and he didn't want me to.
Got it. No, that makes
And I
sense.
think that once he got there, he was like, and I was like, I got you, but I got to do this. You're not ready, but I am. I got to own up to my shit, even if it means, if creating that false narrative of me being the adulterous wife makes you okay, then I'm going to do that, because I need you to be okay first.
Wow.
Right?
That's a lot, yeah.
It's a lot, but that's on me. That's my stuff, right? So I had to go away. I had to look at that. I had to come to terms with that. I had to heal that. And then look at how that dynamic played in the dynamic between Will and I. But I can only be responsible for my part.
As we all can.
That's
Yeah.
it. So I had to look at that, and I was like, this is your place of healing. This is where you have to heal. This is on, that part, Jada, that you played in this is on you. You got to be responsible for that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, how do you feel now that, you know, I say secret, but I guess the secret is out. I mean, I guess it is what it is, right? Like, how do you feel now that, like, okay, the world knows
Yeah. What do you think the world knows?
that you and Will are, just from what I've read and seen, are not divorced. Trying to make sure I understand it. But,
Not divorced,
but living together.
but you're not living together, but you're not. Yeah. So.
Like, is it a weight off your shoulder, or is it?
It is. It's a weight off my shoulders, honestly. And I gotta be honest. I mean, what's even better is that Will and I are in such a good place, and that now we can be together in a way that works for us. And that's what I'm most happy about, you know, because we're in a life partnership. You know, it's just been beautiful. Ever since the Oscars, it's so interesting how such an intense, you know, event can bring you closer together.
Yeah.
You know, and I would say that after that, we really dove in and dug in and got to this beautiful place we are now.
So then I guess the question would be, although you're life partners,
Yep.
and you are not divorced,
Go ahead, ask it.
but the world now knows kind of what it is, at least as much as you guys have shared with us, I should say, to be fair.
Yeah, thank you.
You know,
Yeah.
why not now divorce? Now that the weight is off your shoulders.
Oh, yeah, because we love each other and we're coming closer together and we want our lives to be together. And we are figuring out right now, as we speak, what that looks like for us. You know? But there's no being separated. There's no, we're going to get divorced. And most likely, I'm going to have to give up that house I'm in.
And that was, and I hate to ask this question, but it was interesting that you put it in the book that there was before you got married, Will came to you and was like, my team wants to get a prenup. So, like, does that have anything to do with not getting a divorce, or that's
no.
separate? Okay.
We don't have a prenup, so it wouldn't even.
Right. Well, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. No. I mean, for me, no. It wasn't about the prenup. What you're talking about is the promise I made, which was we'll never need to get a divorce because we'll work through anything. And you can't give up on people.
That's what you show throughout the book.
Yeah, you can't give up on people. I'm not giving up on that dude. And he's not giving up on me. You know, that's easy. That's really easy to do. And we tried. I'm gonna be honest, those 7 years, you know, we definitely tried to give up on each other and just couldn't. It just wasn't allowed, you know? And we've just resolved after that whole Oscar incident, you know, it was like, there's no giving up on each other. So let's just stop and let's get to this deep healing and figure this out.
Now, speaking of healing, throughout the book, you have prompts for the reader.
Yeah.
So can you just talk about why you thought it was important for the readers to kind of take a step back and reflect on their own life?
So it's a bit of a Red Table Talk guidance page, right? But also because it was kind of my dream. Like when I'm hearing people's stories and they're like, yeah, you know, and I went to rehab for 3 years and then I came out clean and I never used drugs again. I'm like, no, I want to know the process. Tell me what you did. That's not enough. And so that's why I wanted to do that for the reader. I just wanted to give a little breadcrumbs along the way, a bit of oxygen along the way of like, I'm not just going to tell you that I got from point A to point B, but I just want to give you just a little bit of the method in which what got me there.
You talk a lot about gardening, which I appreciate the role it's played, you know, in your life. And I wonder now, what kind of flower is Jada Pinkett Smith?
Oh man, I would say she's a big old fluffy pink rose. You know the roses that have the velvety petals? Mm-hmm. Yeah, with no thorns. No, we won't say no thorns. We'll say the little tiny
Minimal,
thorns.
yeah.
Minimal thorns. Minimal thorns. But yeah, just a beautiful pink velvety rose.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a great description. Yeah. You talk about, obviously, depression in the book. And while I've never experienced it, I want to be sensitive saying that because I have no idea how that can affect people. I know that just from interviewing at least celebrities, it can come and go. And so I'm just wondering, how are you dealing with or preparing yourself or taking care of yourself, maybe a better way to phrase it, you know, just in case it comes and goes, or just your life dealing with it?
You know, I don't suffer depression anymore, right? And I've done a lot of different therapeutic modalities to really shift that condition for me. I've done a lot of work, right? So when things come up for me, I know how to manage myself, and I know how to mentally keep myself in a positive place. Even if things get bad, I'm like, this too shall pass. And every morning, I have a routine. It's like a 2-hour routine before I start my day. Get up, I get into meditation, contemplative prayer. I read some scripture of some sort, because I love so many different aspects of so many different religions and spiritual practices. And then I do yoga. That's what I do every day. And at night, I get into stillness, meditation, contemplative prayer before I go to sleep, and sometimes in the middle of the day, right? So I am throughout staying connected to a source higher than myself.
Well, then lastly, and kind of a offbeat, it's not really offbeat, but you write a lot about Pac in your book, and I think we didn't even know how deep the relationship was. And obviously, there's been a lot of news the last couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah.
How has it affected you? You know, because it's almost like a legal closure, if that makes sense, or maybe a legal closure, depending on how everything plays out.
You know, I'm glad that arrest was made. This person we always knew was in the car with the person who shot Pac. And I'm hoping we get more information, you know. I want to know who called the hit.
Who's the greatest rapper, in your opinion, ever?
Don't ask me that.
Oh, you're married to a rapper, too. So
I was like, please, do not ask me that.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Well, let the record state, Tupac, to me, is the greatest rapper that's ever lived. But
Tupac is amazing. And it's so, but you know, to say, it always trips me out when people say, who's the one, you know, greatest rapper? Because there's so many different people with different styles.
You're right. It's all how you categorize
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to create categories and then maybe say, well, who's the best rapper in this category? But I have several, so.
It was a trip to I didn't know that you and Pac did Parents Don't Understand. It was Parents Don't Understand, right?
Yeah, Parents Just Don't Understand and Case
I was like, wait a minute.
It's the video's on my Instagram. I just put it up a couple of weeks ago.
I was like, and then she ends up marrying Will Smith. It was
right? Isn't that crazy?
It's wild.
It's wild. And then Pac is in the video, and then people think Pac and I never had a romantic dynamic. I just want to get that straight.
If you read the book, you'll understand it.
Thank you.
You'll understand it.
Thank
it's just
you.
a deep love for each other.
It's just a deep love for each other, you know. But I also understand, like, you know, how could two people be so close? A man and a woman, especially me and Pac, right? And it's like, we were like that too. We were like, damn, how come this doesn't work? But it just didn't, you know.
I'm sorry, what did you think when his transition from how you knew him in Baltimore and even California to the death row Pac, which seems like what were you thinking when you were seeing the shift? Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, that's why when you read it in the book, when we had that argument, you know, it was me pulling his coattails, like, dude, this ain't it. This ain't you, you know? And that's what that big argument that we had was about. And that we, you know, that created that chasm between us that year. But I wasn't happy with that, you know. But I also felt like his anger was being preyed upon, you know. And it was a complicated time for him, you know. But the core of Pac never changed.
Always remains.
Yeah, always remains. Yeah.
All right, so it's called Worthy.
Yeah.
How do you feel now? Do you feel worthy?
Oh, I feel so worthy.
What's the difference between now feeling worthy and when you didn't feel worthy?
Just knowing who I am. You know, feeling so comfortable in my skin. I know who I am, and I know who I am in regards to my relationship to divine source. You know, and I know that I have everything that I need right here, and that anything else that anybody else wants to offer me is a gift. Is a gift.
Wow.
And I'm deeply grateful. Yeah, I'm just grateful.
Well, that's it for me. Is there anything that you want to add? Anything that you didn't talk about? I mean, your book has so many things. I could talk to you for 3 hours, but you got to go.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's important that you want to add that I didn't hit on?
No, that was great.
You know, you forget how big of an actress you are in so many movies that you've done, like Low Down Dirty Shame. Love that.
Right.
And I'm born and raised in Houston, so anytime somebody,
Jason
I always,
Slitter.
what's your favorite Jada Pinkett?
Jason Slitter.
Jason Slitter. And me and my cousins, when we were little, we'd always walk around talking about what you was doing in the bayou.
Right.
That's like our running joke all the time. But
yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, 2 for 2, quite lovely. So I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Of
Thank you.
course.
This was great.